Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Hodge here, but for the purposes of this, let's just say Josh. It makes it much easier. And I'm here with my good buddy Victor. So Victor, say hey to everyone.
Hey everybody.
There we go. And Victor and I are pretty good friends. We've known each other for a while now. And the other day, we were talking about movies, and we got the idea to do some sort of podcasty type thing based around movies that we like. And so we really don't have a huge plan of exactly where we're going, but we know we watched a movie together, or not together, but we watched a movie.
Oh, I
Oh,
guess.
that's cute. We watched a movie, and we don't live in the same town, so we watched it apart from each other, and now we're going to talk about it. We've been talking about it a little bit outside of here, but now we're going to talk about it with you. And I am a huge movie buff. I have a lot of movies. I like to buy movies. I like to own them. I like to have movies like most people like to have books, and so books are huge. Movies are huge for me, and so we're just gonna kind of go through my collection, Victor's collection, whatever we can find on Netflix, and just talk about good. I want to say good movies, but I'm sure we'll throw in some bad ones for good measure someday,
Just for fun.
just for funsies. But today we are talking about the movie V for Vendetta, which is a great little film. I enjoy it a lot. I actually haven't watched it in probably like a couple of years, so it was a nice little refresher for me. How about you?
It was pretty good. And I guess in light of the election and all of the positive and enjoyable news coverage and campaign ads, we thought let's watch something semi-quasi political. And
Oh yeah.
Josh is a movie buff, and I like watching movies in the buff, so I figured this would be a good.
Oh,
Just kidding, just kidding. But
gross.
trust me, that's not happening.
Have a leather
No,
couch. That's not a good idea.
that's disgusting. All right, so yeah, I like V for Vendetta. I like it because it's different, and I think what makes it easier for me as an American to kind of listen to it and watch it and deal with it is the fact that it's quote unquote British and
Mm.
it's happening somewhere else, and it's real easy for me to get to oh, that could never happen here kind of a place, and I'm like, it could happen here. It could very well happen here if we're not careful. And I think that's what I like it. It made me think about my own political views, and we're not going to talk about that, but just talking about the issues of, a culture and society and power and identity. Those are all kinds of the themes that kind of stuck out to me as I was watching it again this week.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I liked that too. I I have British friends. A couple of people I know that are pretty close to me are British, and so it's funny I didn't know, I guess, until I started talking to them. But this November the 5th thing is it's a real thing, um, and so maybe that makes me really stupid, or maybe that makes American schools really stupid. But um, it was funny because I was like, yeah, I like V for Vendetta, and I quoted the remember the 5th of November to her, and she's like, yeah, that's totally a thing. Like we say that all the time. Like that's a poem that we know in Britain. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I think I agree with you that having it be like not America, it's maybe easier to swallow and think about. I don't know if that might sound really terrible. Um,
No, it doesn't sound terrible. I think it's just easy for us as Americans to not think that things like that will
yeah,
happen here.
yeah,
So when you
totally.
put it in a different context, it's always easier. That's the thing that got me is um, it was easier for me. It was easier to draw those parallels, like
Mhm,
where is our government relative to a government like that?
mhm.
The interplay. The one thing that always strikes me when I watch it, and I've watched it several times, is the interplay of religion and government
Yes.
in the movie, which is it's subtle. It's not really obvious, but it's always there, and you're like, it just doesn't feel right to me the
Yeah,
way that
yeah.
the way that they mix it, and you're like, I don't like that. I don't like that, not even a little bit.
Yeah, they the guy that's in charge, whatever his
The
name is.
Supreme Chancellor,
Yeah, Supreme Chancellor. What's his
High
face?
Chancellor Adam Sutler.
Sutler. Yeah. Yeah, he's got and this is no coincidence, but it's a very Nazi feel to it. Um,
Right.
which in and of itself had some religious undertones too. Not as much as this. I mean, this is hardcore. I mean, even their symbol itself is like partially a cross, you know. But it does. It has this very much like religious, like it almost to like a fault. Like the protection there given by Sutler is not just one of political protection, but it's of quote unquote religious protection. But that religious protection means you have to be whatever he is, which is actually like my favorite part of the movie. Like I love V, and I like the relationship between he and Evie, and I like even Stephen Fry's character. I know you don't know names, so Stephen Fry was Gordon Dietrich, the guy, the news guy, news guy, the kind of like their Jay Leno kind of guy. Anyway, Gordon, his character is great. I love the scenes with him and her, which we'll get to those. But honestly, more than anything, I really like the backstory in this movie. Pretty much everything like surrounding V's life prior to this. So everything related to Lark Hill in the movie is so good. And like it really, you have to like stop and think, because it's almost underplayed what's going on. You get through most of the movie before you realize like what was happening at Lark Hill. That literally, in a very Holocaust-like manner, all the people that the government did not agree with are getting rounded up and brought to be tested on. And that, to me, that backstory that's just kind of playing behind it all is thoroughly engrossing. In fact, watching it this time around, because I've seen it enough, like I honestly cared less about V and Evie and more about like this kind of backdrop that's happening all behind him, and really is like the thing that moves him. And I was finding myself more interested in that story, I thought.
Well, I gotta tell you, so if you're listening to this, I'm gonna go ahead and give a general spoiler alert. So if you have not watched the movie, now would be a good time to stop this and go watch it.
Right.
Because we're about to get into stuff that's probably gonna ruin it for you if you haven't. But on that point, what happens at Clark's Hill, V kills everybody connected to that.
Yeah.
And the last person he kills is the doctor who was kind of heading up the experimentation. And the thing is, he doesn't kill her violently.
Yeah, no.
That V kind of knows that this woman actually might have believed that what she was doing was like a good thing. And so he poisons her, and he says, she asks him, is it going to hurt? And he says, no. He goes, I've already killed you 10 minutes ago while you were sleeping. And there's this, that even though V is a cold, calculated killer, he really is a principled killer. Like, he isn't going after random people. He really is going after the bad people, but he's heartless. He does it completely without conviction. And when he kind of saves her and they're talking, she asks him, are you going to kill more people? And he just says, yes, I am. Yes. I'm going to kill more people.
He's very honest.
More people are going to die, which is just a wild twist, because, John, I'm thinking, this is insane.
Yeah.
This dude, and what he's doing is insane, but he himself is like super sane. Like, I don't even know if there's a word to describe him. He's like, there's complete clear thought.
It's another level of clarity. I mean, with what is going on in his mind.
Yeah, he is not confused about what he's trying to do.
Yeah, no, it seems like everything that happens at Lark Hill, for him, I mean, again, like we've already warned you about the spoilers, so I'm just going to run rampant with this. But they're doing these experiments on these people, and he is one of them. And he's the only one that survives all the horrible things that they're doing to them. And it's really glazed over in the movie, and I haven't read the comics, so I don't really know exactly what was going on. But she talks about him, the doctor does, about how he's forgotten everything that he was before. So whatever the testing they were doing, which I'm assuming was to make some sort of bioweapon. But whatever it was, he had forgotten who he was before, which is an interesting concept into his psyche anyway. But he does. The whole place goes up in smoke, blows up, and he survives it. And so he's in his mind like he knows exactly what he has to do, and he's not confused about it at all. And actually, yeah, I'm glad you brought up the doctor scene because watching it, he's catching all these folks that have been involved with it, and he kills all of them in a very menacing way. Very much like sneaks up behind you when you least expect it,
right?
Kills you, kind of thing. But with the doctor, it's not. I won't say it's like love or even remorse, but it's this thing of like in his mind. This is what it seems like his mind is. His mind is like, I know you meant well. I know that you didn't mean to be. You weren't evil like the other people, but in his mind, but you did it, and you have to answer for that.
Right.
So in his mind, like there's no questions. You got to die for this, and she actually believes she's on his side with this. She understands. In fact, the first thing she said is, "I knew one day you'd come."
And she's the only one.
Yeah. And in his mind, he's like, it's not remorse for sure, but it is this kind of like, this has to happen, but I'm not enjoying it. I don't feel good about it, but it has to happen.
It's like a sympathy. He feels sympathy for her,
almost, or maybe
compassion. I don't know. Can't find the right word there.
Yeah,
he's gonna kill her.
I don't think it's a real emotion, like because he ultimately ends up on, I still have to kill you.
Right.
But I do like that she says, "Are you going to kill me?" And he says, "I already have killed you. I did it while you were sleeping." And there is this moment of like, okay, he doesn't hate this lady. He hates what was done to him. He hates what was done to his countrymen even. But he doesn't hate this lady, which is interesting because he does hate the other people.
And he kills everybody else super violent. I mean, it is a super violent death in all the other ones.
What I do like about him, though, when we first meet him, he has the chance to kill 3 dudes and he doesn't.
Right.
But then I like it at first, but then as the more I thought about it, because V is kind of this kind of, he's a really deep character. The reason he doesn't kill those guys, in my opinion, is because they don't matter to his cause. Like, they're just 3 guys. Sure, they were about to rape Evie, but in his mind, these are just 3 guys. I mean, he saved her. He did his job. He did his good deed, but he had no intention of killing them because they didn't have anything to do with what he wanted to do. Hey, what do you think about that?
I think that's the one inconsistency in the movie.
That scene?
Yeah, because everybody else that he encounters, I mean, even the dudes that are with Creedy at the end in the subway when they bring Sutler, I mean, he kills everybody. I mean, he does not shy away from killing anybody, and yet that guy, those 3 guys, he doesn't kill.
But do you think, like, in his mind, because those people are attached to Creedy, like they're just as bad off in his mind?
They're drones. I mean, they're just there because they're supposed to be there. But that's the thing. They're doing their quote-unquote job, but so were those fingermen, the guys that were going to rape Evie. But he doesn't kill them. I mean, it could be that he didn't want to kill them in front of her.
Yeah, I can see yours.
It could be that. But I'm just like, that's the one, as far as his character and how he plays out throughout the rest of the movie, he should have killed him. And so there isn't any real, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. There's no real logic to it there. It's just kind of like, I guess it's the one thing that's inconsistent because
I can see that.
After watching it a few times, you kind of expect, why didn't he kill those guys? So, which is kind of where they were debating him killing people. But I was like, wait a minute.
But yeah, no, you're right. I was noticing it because I remember watching it the other day when I watched it. He shows up, he fights the 3 guys, and in my mind, I was like, oh, that's cool. Having seen the movie, I'm like, he didn't kill them. But then as you're watching, yeah, dude, he kills like every Joker that gets in his way. When he has to get out of the news station, he kills them. No, not a second thought. Knives in chests. Not a blink. Well, of course we wouldn't see him blink, but nothing. Just he just does it.
Kind of hard to see with a mask on.
Right. But yeah, those 3 maybe they are inconsistency. I kind of like to think in my mind, maybe they just like in his mind they weren't doing it. But you're right, they were fingermen, so their job would have been to protect the curfew. Not necessarily their job was to rape her. But
yeah, but that's the thing, that he doesn't kill the people in the studio, but he doesn't need to. Okay, because they are going to be a part of his plot, so that kind of plays into what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, he kills the cops.
Yeah, no, like without
All the cops. I mean, he doesn't even hesitate to kill the cops. He kills the soldiers. He kills whoever gets in his way. And
Mm-hmm.
those three dudes. And I think now that I'm really thinking about it, it could very well be he didn't want to kill them in front of her.
Yeah,
That is the only thing that would make that scene really kind of make sense and jive with the rest of them.
yeah,
Because
because he does seem to be caring about her reaction to the things in that scene. Um, in fact, that's actually I hate that scene. Of course, there's no other way for it to happen, but that scene it's very quick in the movie, and it's one of my favorite scenes as far as like timing wise.
hmm
As far as just not from like a story point, but just like writing and timing and stuff. It's so good because with the whole scene we just described happens. He beats the snot out of these dudes, and the first thing she asks him who he is, and I love Hugo Weaving is so good as V. His delivery, but the who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask. And she's like, well, I can see that. And of course you can. I'm not questioning your powers of observation. I'm merely remarking upon the paradox of asking a masked man who he is. I love it. It's so good. The writing is so good. The timing is so good.
The one thing that I loved about the movie is that if you're a smart person, you get treats along the way, and
Hmm.
if you don't care about that kind of level of entertainment, you still get the raw in your face. I'm gonna kill something. I'm gonna
Yeah,
blow
yeah, for
something up.
sure.
So there's this multiple levels that you have this highly quote unquote evolved person who's intelligent, who's articulate,
Right.
who can turn a phrase, and yet he is capable of some of the most ridiculous amounts of violence at the same
Yeah.
time. You're
He,
like, what?
he's funny, but in like a very like dry kind of way. Like that scene. And then, he goes into the V speech. At least that's what I call it. But the one where he just has this string of V's.
Right.
Um, what are, the in the view of humble vaudevillian veteran cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate.
You said you weren't going to read it.
Not
You
going to say
said
the
you
whole
weren't.
thing. I'm just going to say that part. Because that's the only part that I can say without messing up. Um, but he has this long, drawn-out speech, and it's ridiculous because there's no reason you should know that many words that start with V. Um,
No.
and that's his introduction. You may call me V, and her reaction. I don't really like Natalie Portman. Let me just put that out there as an actress. I don't think she's that good. Um,
She did a good job in this movie.
she did
I
okay.
think.
I,
I
I
liked how she acted in this
I
movie.
felt her coming in and out of her accent more than I wanted her to, but she's American, so I can't really fault her for that.
Come
Um,
on, man. Give her a
but
break.
but her question as soon as he gives his B speech is, "Are you like a crazy person?" And
Yeah.
his reaction, his answer, "I'm quite sure they will say so." And it's just brilliant because he could have just said yes or he could have said no, but he is very honest in all of his answers, and all of his answers are very calculated. They all mean
Right.
something. He doesn't say anything if it doesn't mean a lot.
Every single one of his answers actually answers the question.
Yeah,
And
and more
I
than the
think that's
person
the thing.
asking it wanted them to.
Right. That he actually gives the answer that really answers the question, as opposed to something that would just make the conversation stop or even continue. Because when she asks, "Are you a crazy person?" in my bad British accent, and
Right?
he's he says they will. Some people, whatever he says, some people will think so or say so. She's like, well, then the answer is yes.
Right.
Yeah. I am a crazy person, but it depends on who's seeing me.
And he kind of is a crazy person, but
He is a crazy person. I mean, nobody does what he does without being
yeah,
slightly off.
yeah.
Um, but and that's the thing. Just to switch scenes for just a second, because to contrast the craziness of the question, there's the scene where he goes in and he hijacks the news station,
Hmm.
right? And he takes everybody captive, and he plays this video about why he's doing what he's doing, and he reveals it, and it's basically to remind everybody about the fact that they gave up their identity as human beings out of fear, out of comfort, because of some crazy situations in the country. They surrendered their right to be a human, uh, and so he's trying to remind them that that was a mistake. It is never a good thing to surrender your right to be a human being. And he makes this amazing, like, speech. Really, it's a speech, but he makes this amazing, just like call to all these people, his countrymen. And he says, "I know why you did it." He says, "Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable." Right? So he's telling you, I'm going to go kill some people. But
Hmm.
again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease, and then all the other things. And then he says, but that was still not reason enough. Even though I know why you did it, it wasn't a
Hmm.
good enough reason to do it. And so you have this contrast between Psycho Man, who's blowing up buildings,
Yeah.
killing people on the spot, and this guy who has this, like, I love my country,
Hmm.
crazy patriotism kind of a thing. Um, I don't know. There's so much good that I like about this movie.
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
much I like about this movie.
Um, yeah, I like him a lot there, and I like the kind of putting it on the people to an extent. I know why you did it. Um, because this guy Sutler, he promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent. That line. And what I like about it is he begins to imply, which we see reacted out through some different people, but he begins to imply that they know exactly what's going on. They
Hmm.
just refuse to believe it. And we see
Right.
it even there's when they because they after the news station incident, they showed up some propaganda on the news
Hmm.
where they show them shooting someone who was wearing a V mask that wasn't him, and they tell everyone that they killed him. And the little girl is watching the news. It's like maybe like a young teenage girl, and she
Sure.
just shakes her head and she's like, "Bollocks!" Like, no,
Yeah.
she knows, and she's just a little girl, but she knows, and they all know. And that seems to be a theme. Anytime you see some of them watching TV, if they're being lied to, they know it. It's obvious that they know, but they don't care because it's kept them safe so far. At least in their minds, it has. And he is definitely speaking to that, I think, and really just pointing out, like, look, you know what's going on just as well as I do. You just don't want to see it.
And that's the contrast too. I mean, there's another contrast that Sutler, okay, who is obviously deranged, and I don't know who that actor was, but
Yeah,
he's been in other things. But that dude's awesome.
yeah,
I
he's
mean, he
good.
did a great. I mean, he screamed the entire movie, by the way. But uh,
Yeah.
the one thing about him is that all the lies that are told to the people through the propaganda and the
Hmm.
news station, whatever, nobody believes it,
Hmm.
but Sutler does.
Yeah.
Sutler is the only true believer.
Hmm.
That he truly believes that everything that they're doing is for the good of the country, is for the good of the nation, and especially good for him. I mean, I think we'd be naive to think that
Hmm.
he wasn't interested in maintaining the power. That's all he cared about, keeping
Yeah.
control. But the man truly believed that what he was doing was justifiable,
Hmm.
even though everybody knew it was a lie and a load of a pile of manure.
Yeah.
Uh,
But they were so quick to just like, even though they would hear a news story and know that it's wrong,
yep.
they're so quick to just be like, okay, we
Right.
accept that.
Well, at that point, what else was there to do?
Hmm.
They had no. They didn't ever think. They didn't know what to do because anything they tried, they just lost. They had lost their way. They had completely lost their identity, and that's the idea of V, where he kind of says that, so if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgot. He says, if you see what I see, that this is all a bunch of horse crap, that this is uh, not what life is supposed to be like,
Hmm.
then here's the roadmap, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do to get out of this.
Right.
Uh, which is one of the cool things for me is the theme of identity. You know,
Hmm.
who are you, and who gets to define that?
Yeah.
Who gets to tell you who you are?
I I think that brings me to kind of my last point. One of my favorite characters, honestly, in the whole movie is Stephen Fry's character, Gordon, Gordon Dietrich. Um, because when we first see him, he's just this guy that works at the news station or the television station, and we get the idea that Evie in the first scene was going to meet him when she was getting all dolled up in the opening scene of the movie. That's where she was going, was to his house, presumably. Um,
A rendezvous.
yes, and that's what we think about him. And when she escapes V and goes to his house, um, she realizes that he's not what she thought he was.
Right.
He was not who he said he was on television. And it really is um, a sense of identity. There's this identity crisis that he has and he tells her, I've been hiding this, who I am. He was a gay guy. Um, and he had in the bottom of his house, he had all these pictures, and then he had a Quran. Um, and so that's like double no-nos, because part of the people that were getting rounded up and being sent to Larkhill were homosexual people. And then if you did anything outside of the religion, which was quote unquote Christianity, you would be in trouble too. So he'd be doubly in trouble. In fact, she's like, I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have put this on you. He goes, trust me, if they search my house, there's going to be a lot more to worry about than you. Which I thought was funny because V all but says the same thing when he's at her house. She's like, you got all these things in your house that are stolen. He's like, if they ever find me, there's going to be a lot more things to worry about than these things in my house. And so he kind of gives her another side of that same conversation. And I do like the contrast. He cooks her the same breakfast, and that's cute.
Right.
But what it really is what V is doing inspires him, and he's able to be himself. Unfortunately, it's what kills him. But he is himself, and he takes what V is doing as an excuse to really express his identity. As a man who doesn't enjoy the government, who doesn't think highly of it. I mean, his kind of blaze of glory is he totally makes fun of Sutler, like just 100% makes fun of him, and he kind of laughs it off, and he says, I'll have to pay a fine and public apology and all that stuff, and that is not what happens at all. He is killed, but through that, I think Evie really gets to come into her identity too. She has this complaint that she's noticed the things that are going wrong, and she gives this spiel to V, and it's mostly to get out of his house. But I think she ends up believing it. But she has this speech about how she's seen the things going on, and she's so mad at herself for being so scared, and she just doesn't want to be scared anymore. And I think she begins to really feel that. And it's what allows her to do what she does throughout the rest of the movie. There's this whole scene where she's in prison like V, and it's almost becoming V. But in that way, like, she's really finding her way to her identity, I think, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's why she's Evie.
Yeah.
She is the female him in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And when through her, you see how he became him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is a good point.
That's the contrast, and that's the thing. Just one last kind of quote from that scene in the news station is when he starts talking about what's the name of the guy? Faust? Is it Faust? Is he talking about the Faustian mask? Is that the name of the mask? Anyways,
Guy Fawkes.
Yeah. So the guy Faust. So the guy that he kind of patterns the face mask after. He says, more than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. And here's a line that always gets me. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. And I like that line because it talks about the fact that, with these words, the way you look at things changes.
Mm-hmm.
That these words should actually mean something, and that's the problem. That everything that Sutler was doing and everything that the government was doing was completely sucking the life out of the words that were being used.
Mm-hmm.
Those words had no meaning. Those words had no perspective. Those words didn't do nothing. Did not do anything. I don't know what I was saying. It was like triple negative right there. Did not do anything to help the citizens. And yet, these words from a guy who'd been dead for 400 years
Mm-hmm.
brought perspective back, and that's what V's kind of objective was. But if you have not seen this movie, you have got to see this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If for no other reason, to get your mind thinking,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of interesting ideas. Quick story, which makes me laugh, just thinking about this. So about 3 years ago, went trick or treating, and we're walking from house to house down the neighborhood, and I walk up, and there's this guy sitting with the V mask, and I look at him. I said, "Hey, it's V," and he took the mask off, and he says, "You're the first person who's recognized who I was." I was like, "Man, I love that movie." He says, "Yeah, it's a good movie." Talked for a couple of minutes, and then we left. Um, and so you will become more cultured. No, you won't. It's a good movie.
It
You
is a
should
good
watch
movie.
it.
Yeah, it is. It is very good, and kind of my last hurrah. But going to identity, the question of who this guy's identity is brought up at the very end, and Evie to the cop that's been kind of and looking into all of this, and he asks
Oh
her
yeah.
who he is, and she says her reply is that he was all of us,
Hmm.
and that's really what's going on. He was what the people couldn't be. Um, as far as he was the one that could see. They all saw, but they wouldn't say anything. And he was the one who
And he
would.
was blind. We haven't said that. He was blind because he didn't have eyes.
Hmm.
Did you catch that? I mean, you
Yeah.
just said that, and I remember that fact in the movie. His
Hmm.
eyes were burned because at the Larksdale facility,
Hmm.
it was burnt down. So he
Yeah.
had no eyes, and yet he was the only one who could see.
He's the one who can see what's going on. Yeah. So anyway, fantastic movie. I love it. It's always a good watch. So if you haven't seen it, see it. If you guys have movies that maybe you want us to watch and talk about, leave those in the comments. Also, feel free. Let's talk about V for Vendetta in the comments below. We'll be checking them and stuff. And this is something we kind of want to do regularly. So hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know. And we will see you guys next time.
Later.
See you.